So, all right, well, it's just after 10. Welcome everybody to our bi-week webinar. For people that don't know me, I'm Ryan Poole, co-host here with Jim Brown. We do this, bi-week webinar to add value to you agents. I'm an agent myself, been doing this over 25 years out there trying to make deals happen. I'm also the founder of Real Trade, which is an online marketplace and social media platform for real estate. I want you all to check that out. As Jim likes to say, we're the home in the double dip, so you can create a free profile. Imagine this: get leads directly off your listings for free. Of course, you can also connect with Jim and other service providers on the platform through our social component as well. But excited for this one, Jim. There's been amazing changes in the industry, obviously with the NAR settlement and now with the condo laws with Senate Bill 4D. I know we did a lot of webinars on that as we were going through that, and you shepherded us through all those changes. And we now have sounds like a little bit of relief from DeSantis. So I've put a couple condos under contract here in the last couple of weeks. So excited to learn about these changes. And Jim, why don't you take us away?
Will do. I see a bunch of people are pouring in, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
The waiting room is blowing up.
Yeah, I've been letting people in as we go, Jim. I'll make sure they get in.
All right, cool. I want to mention a couple things. Crossing for Cystic Fibrosis. We had an amazing trip. We raised a whole bunch of money for the kids that are afflicted with cystic fibrosis. We are one of the largest charities in the planet for benefit to families and kids with cystic fibrosis. If you ever want to do something good for a little kid and feel good about it, go to let me know, text me, and I'll send you our link for our team. Fundraising ends the end of July. The stories I hear after the event are just so heartwarming. It keeps me coming back every year, and whatever it costs in money or takes in time for me to participate, I'm going to do it forever. Title Advance. We're refining Title Advance. We're going to have a new feature in Title Advance that's going to get you your reports within an hour. Within the next couple of weeks, we're going to put a program together that's going to be automated, that's going to get you your Title Advance reports quicker. Like and subscribe when you see us on YouTube. And my goal with this podcast is to bring you guys content and perspectives you won't hear anyplace else, right? You can go and listen to the website. You can go and listen to the National Florida Association of Realtors podcast, but I want to give you guys perspectives and practitioner perspectives that'll get you practicing quicker in dialogue that you won't get anyplace else. There's no bad questions. Anybody who wants to, I appreciate Amy Jo and Guillermo going live so I can see your faces, engage your responses. It's always appreciated when I can see people's faces, because then I see people are getting it or they're not quicker. And then I can move or wait on topics and cover this stuff more in depth. Got to get you out of here in 30 to 45 minutes. Question and answers at the end. You can go to New Path Title 24/7 and text me, and I'll be happy to help you with any transactional issue you're having, whether I'm the closing agent or not. New Path Title has a link on it for 24/7 attorney support. Lee, you're looking sharp in that picture. And then you could also text me any topics you want me to cover in the future. Wow, this is a huge pod. We're going to keep it tight.
This is a good one. I mean, we did.
Go ahead, Ryan. Cut out. I heard you did, and then you went dead.
Later of what's happened with the market, and prices definitely have came down, right? But it's looking like there's going to be some relief here. I think DeSantis kind of realized they overreacted, right? With the Senate Bill 4D. So I'm excited to see what's changed.
All right, today is July 1st, 2025. A week ago, DeSantis signed into law House Bill 913, which is effective today. I sat in on a discussion, and I've been waiting for the new form to be released. It all happened this morning, and the discussion was yesterday. And basically, it was kept in a black box, busted out on us today. Good morning, Australia. And so I want to go over a couple of these things that we can do in the timeframes that we were provided. And then next section, I'm going to give you guys the practitioner's perspective today and what you need to know to practice today if you're going to write a contract today. And then next Tuesday when we get together, I'm going to give you guys a cheat sheet and all the things you need and a little background on the law and things like that. But today is just going to be going over the form changes and what you need to know to hit the streets today to sell a condo. These are the measures designed to curb the condo crisis. I'm not sure we're there, but it's definitely a start, like Ryan was saying. But the main thing is, right, like all things in real estate, this will normalize. What's happening is we're like in this wave where we kick the can down the road forever. Does everybody remember what the old law was? The old law was simply, it's as basic as it gets. When anybody wants to know what's the difference between the new law condo laws and the old condo laws, it boils down to this one simple thing. Under the old condo laws, unit owners could vote to defer expenses for maintenance items into the future. That's it. Under the new condo law, you have to have a report that yields a study of costs, and you have to undertake those costs that year. So it's called the kick the can rule, right? It's as simple as that. Under the old condo laws, unit owners could vote to defer expenses for needed maintenance items. If you had 10 years left in your roof and the roof cost $10 million or $100,000, $1 million, if you had 10 years left in your roof and the roof cost $1 million, under the old law, you could undertake that $1 million expense in year 10. Under the new law, you have to set aside a little money every single year. So when people talk about all the craziness in the condo laws, it's really important to narrow the conversation to just the main issues, and that's it. And that's why I say this mess will normalize. It's going to get back to normal. We have a little bit of a problem with the infected condos and the uninfected condos. I've talked about this before, and the algorithms not knowing the difference between the condominiums with the heavy duty assessments and the condominiums that don't have heavy duty assessments. And when you're educating your buyers and sellers, it's important to either steer them towards, or away from this estimate that they're all looking at. And the stats are well over 80% now. Everybody's going to Zillow to look at the value of their unit. This is the third condo rider change in less than 1 year. Pause, full stop. That's never happened before, and it's the fourth in 2 years. I'm reminded of my old law school mentor who told me, go into real estate. The law never changes and there are no deadlines. That has been anything but my experience for the last 20 plus years. The laws are always changing. Make sure you're up on any changes. Text me 24/7. My text is available at newpathtitle.com at the 24/7 attorney link. I had an agent text me over the weekend, some really good questions about the new condo laws. Listen, there are so many things you guys have to be responsible for. And everybody who texts me, they always start with the same thing. They say, I'm sorry for taking your time. This is the most valuable thing that I can be doing with my time, because if we all know what we're doing, it just cuts our time that we spend on the field to get to the finish line. And that's my goal. So don't start your inquiry with, I'm sorry for taking your time. I'm terrible at email. I'm really sorry. And if you like the way we work in paragraph 20, write the closing agent is newpathtitle.com. Anybody can pay for title in Florida. We just had this big discussion with a bunch of Port St. Lucie agents and a big blow up over a transaction. The buyer chose title and the seller paid. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how it's done in every other state in the United States. But for some reason, Florida has this kind of antiquated system of who pays for title and who doesn't. In every other state, it's a negotiable item. I guarantee you, if you choose us for title, we'll save you time on your deals. And I'm not sure in the contract why escrow agent and title agent is not better defined. That's not right. It's not better defined. But title agent is closing agent is actually defined further down in the form, and escrow agent is defined at the top, and they're actually two separate people, and you'd be surprised how many agents don't know that. Two separate parties. Can be the same party. And I'll also mention one thing before we move on. Don't use a separate closing agent and an escrow agent. Why? Because cyber fraud is over $50 million a month in the United States in real estate transactions alone. So move your money the fewest times possible. Don't park it with your escrow agent and then move it to your closing agent later in the deal. It just opens up the opportunity for fraud. Here's a market brief, and this market brief today is just about West Palm Beach condo market, not even the greater Palm Beach County condo market in general, but just the greater West Palm Beach market. March 2025 median sale price was 412,500. Nice, that's a move up. Inventory was at 801 units. And this is up 21% from the previous year. That's 25%, you guys, for all intents and purposes. That's a quarter more units on the market. Supply jumped to 12.3 months, up from 7.8 months a year ago. And in March, 77 sales closed, which is actually an uptick. But there's a lot more property on the market. So closings relative to inventory is still dramatically down. New pending sales were at 83%, down a quarter over a year ago. So that's the story right there in a nutshell. West Palm Beach leads the nation in all cash purchases, with 50% of the buyers coming to the table with all cash. Days on market is drastically increasing. I could not get an exact number, but everybody's aware of that. Luxury buildings have seen a major increase in average sale price. For example, La Clara penthouse closed for 18.7 million. There's a ton. I don't know if anybody saw the Steve Ross article. Steve Ross broke off from Related because he wants to double down more heavily on West Palm Beach. Ryan, what were the price points of that new project he's doing on?
For the Flagler house, yeah, they're like, I think they're starting over $2,000 a square foot. You know, there's stuff over 3,000, but they did just they secured their loan, 600 million.
What is going on with West Palm Beach? Like,
I
I
tell you
get
what,
it.
I mean, the billionaires are pushing the millionaires out of Palm Beach, right? They're moving over to West Palm. You know what I mean? I mean, that's what it seems like.
Yeah, but you can't, how many units are in that new Steve Ross building?
Oh, hundreds. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
I
It's a big
think,
project.
I think it's like 300 units or something like that. Like you can't, there's not that many Palm Beachers. This is a world draw. This is people coming from all over the world. Tajay,
Yep.
and Christian, and Elena are closing files, and our buyers are coming in from further and further points all the time. And it's not the same market it was a few years ago. And those people that are coming in to buy those units in Steve Ross's building, they're bringing landscapers, or not landscapers because it's a condo, but they're bringing all the ancillary people. They're bringing their doctors, and they're bringing their lawyer. They need all those local people. So
Yep.
it's kind of a trickle down effect. You say like, okay, these buildings are selling. What is the relevance to me? I deal in the market between 500 or 300 and 600. That's my market, because all those people coming in to fill all those buildings are bringing ancillary and support people with them by osmosis. So,
Yeah.
you know, from a trickle down kind of theory, I hope I didn't offend anybody. But from a trickle down theory, it's gonna fill in the landscape of, but there's also of available units and homes and everything, support people, places to live. And there's a beautiful project coming out of the ground in what's it called? Northwood, the workforce housing program. This is just an example of the trickle down effect of bringing in these expensive people, these expensive units, is all the support people needed. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about, Ryan?
Yeah, I've heard about it, but I'm not super familiar with it. But
It's huge.
yeah.
Luxury price per foot is 538 to $968, and sales pushing well above 1,000. And like Ryan said, those buildings that are coming out of the ground, Flagler House, it's going to be $2,000 to $3,000 a foot. hard to even wrap my head
Let's
around.
go. I know. No, it's great.
It's a reset. Here's the summary of the summary. Lots more inventory, softening prices, buyers playing wait and see. It will stabilize and they'll come back out. We just got to get over that wave of assessments and people's shock and awe and repulsion by what's going on with the no more kick the can down the road. All right, here's the main topic, changes to the condo law, a 30,000-foot overview. I'll get more granular next show. We're going to do the next show on the same topic. I'll get you a checklist. I'll get you things you need to shortcut to the goal. But if you get a contract for a condo between now and then, today we're going to review the contract form so you can do business today.
Sweet.
7 major changes, and this stuff just came out yesterday, you guys. 7 major, here's the major changes. So there's a few major changes to keep in mind. This is just, again, the 30,000-foot view. 7-day inspection of all documents, does not include weekends and holidays. Full stop. There's going to be a huge opportunity for people to do whatever they do when they get these documents instead of 3 days. And I get the call, oh my God, it's the 4th day. What do I do? Now it's 7 days, doesn't include weekends and holidays. So it's going to be 2 weeks. It could be 2 weeks and a couple of days, but it's going to be, it's going to be a longer period in there. I gave you a link to the federal holidays. I get texts all the time from agents. They want to know if a certain day is a holiday. It's in the outline.
Yep. Just so everybody knows, you're all going to be emailed this outline in the recording too after the show as well.
Sears deadline is moved to December 31st, 2025. I've read stats that only 30, I think the last stat I read was only 60% of all condos were out of conformance with SIRS.
Yep.
It's over half. And so
I heard about half too, Jim. Yeah.
So and I get the texts like 2 or 3 times a week from agents. What do I do? Everything. This morning I got a question about SIRS implementation. So there's 2 parts to the SIRS. There's an inspection and there's a budget. The inspection has to have the items in it that lead to the budget. You can't have a budget without an inspection, and you can't have an inspection that doesn't lead to a budget. I get all kinds of crazy calls, and so I know the tremendous confusion that everybody's going through over this whole issue. But you can't have a SIRS, you can't have a structural integrity reserve study until you have an inspection. And every element in that SIRS has to be tied to something they found in the inspection. So the call I got this morning from a person who has a longtime condo in Fort Lauderdale, I got a call from the agent referred the owner to me. They want to sell. And so the association, it's a smaller building. The association has taken radical steps to implement what they think is the restoration agenda. But the question, the analysis is simple. What does the milestone inspection say? If it's not in the milestone inspection, unless all the unit owners vote in favor of it or the majority vote in favor of it, the board can't take unilateral action. Now, change the facts a little bit. The issue on this building was vent stacks. If the structural integrity reserve study says we need vent stacks, then the board has to budget for vent stacks. So I told the unit owner, look at your milestone inspection, see if it has vent stacks in it. They're going to do a little homework and get back to me. And then we're going to contact the board and say, you guys can't jam vent stacks down the unit owner's throats. It's not in and we didn't vote on it. It's not in the milestone inspection. Anybody has any questions, text me 24/7. You have to have a milestone inspection issue to have something in the structural integrity reserve study that is going to be a mandatory budget item. In the new law, I didn't put it in the outline, they've exempted a whole bunch of things from mandatory reserves, but this is just the high points. So the other high point, so your SURS deadline is pushed out to December 31st, 2025. Now all the 50% of condos, 60% of condos that aren't in compliance are now in compliance.
There is an election too, which I know you'll probably go over in the condo rider of whether they did it or not. So obviously
Yeah.
ask the listing agent if they did it or not, and you can check that off.
And there's a whole bunch of benefits to us, which I'll summarize in the next show about financial relief for unit owners that did comply on time, but
Okay.
it's too much detail for one show. It's too much detail for me to
Let's keep going,
summarize in
Jim.
one
Let's
show.
keep going.
All right, Condo Doc website. Buildings with 25 units or more shall publish the following docs on a separate website accessible with a username and password. Previously, it was 150 units and more. Now it's 250 units or more. It's mandatory as of
Is
July
it 25 or 250, Jim? It's 25.
25.
25. Got it.
25 units or more has to publish to the website. Now, what are they going to publish? The stuff that we all want, the declarations, the bylaws, the articles, the budgets, annual and proposed, the financials and monthly income and expenses report, meeting notices and agendas, milestone and SIRS, and the statute does not list the 12-month prior meeting minutes or the 12-month prior agenda, but I believe it will be in there. So hopefully.
What about the FAQs? FAQs?
FAQs are oh, the FAQs have answers, right? There's the governance form, which is the standard form for all units, and then the FAQs.
No,
It did
FAQs.
not say, I don't remember reading anything about the FAQs in the statute,
That
but I
is
will
in
double
the,
check
yeah,
that.
that is in the condo rider. All right, keep going.
What was I gonna say? Okay, so we'll figure out, I'll do some research on the FAQs, and we're gonna get into it in a minute more, but when we go over the form itself. But I did not realize, and I've been doing this for 20 years, there's separate agendas. I've been doing this in private practice for 20. I've been doing this, you know, as a real estate participant for 40. I did not realize there was separate agendas for the board and for the unit owners, and there's separate meeting minutes for the board and the unit owners. Like, to me, it would all just be the same document, but when we get into the new form, it's all in there. So what does the new form look like? You got this, can you see it, Ryan?
Yeah, well, it's kind of getting cut off. Maybe you can make it a little bit wider or zoom in or out.
We
Zoom
good
out.
now?
There, now we can see it. Yep, here we go. So this is the
All right.
newest one.
This is the newest one. You guys will recognize it. Let's see, how can I get my outline up? I guess I don't need it. I know this stuff by heart. So here's the newest form. You'll recognize the newest form because at the very bottom it says 06-2025, CR7 REV 06-2025. There's a bunch of other condo forms, the CRISP and things like that, that we don't generally use as a group. But this is the form that's been pushed into the practice that I see 99.999% of you guys using. So how does it start off? Right at the very beginning, there's a change. It says, if the property is part of a master or other homeowners association, seller shall complete rider B, homeowners association community disclosure. So if you have nested communities, the form now says at the very top, you're going to use the other riders for the other types of communities. So if it's nested in another COA, you're going to have another COA rider. Or if it's nested in a homeowners association, you're going to have a homeowners association community disclosure. And the rules about the necessary disclosures as a seller are different for homeowners associations than condo associations. And we've done a show on the differences, and I get attorneys calling me that don't know the differences. So, you know, I would hold attorneys to a standard that they should know the difference, and not everybody does. So as a practitioner, you guys, as an agent, you guys need to know that stuff, because you might be correcting some attorneys. The condominium association. All right, so at the very, very top, in a stroke of genius, now you're going to list the contact seller is going to list the contact person for the association and the management company. Why didn't we do this before? Who knows? I've been talking about it for years, but now it's there. Additional contact information can be found on the association's website. Brilliant. Condominium association approval. This has changed slightly. The condominium association approval of buyer is or is not required. If the approval is required, this contract is contingent upon buyer being approved by the association no later than 5 days before closing. If you leave it blank, within 5 days of the effective date, if you leave it blank, seller shall initiate the approval process. I'm going to emphasize the changes as we go through here, but I just wanted to resonate with you guys. Put the old form out of your mind. Just focus on the new form. Seller shall initiate the approval process with the condominium association and provide the buyer with a copy of the current application for approval, and buyer shall promptly apply for such approval. How many agents I can think of, and myself included, have relied on buyer's agent to do all this stuff? It's not. It's started by the seller's agent. Buyer and seller shall sign and deliver any documents required by the condominium association in order to complete the transfer of the property, and each shall use diligent effort to obtain such approval, including making personal appearances. In the old form, I'm going to pull that up that I can look at on the side. We didn't have that provision in there. Buyer, and then let's see. If buyer is not approved within the stated time period, this contract is terminated and buyer shall be refunded the deposit, thereby releasing buyer and seller from any further actions. That's all old stuff, but the new stuff is the copy and the application. Right of first refusal, a lot of changes here. This was a confusing one. Don't even think about the old form, just commit to memory the new form. The
Can I
condominium
interrupt you
association.
1 second? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some associations, they don't want, because I always try to get the application from the association, but many want you to go to the applicant just to go directly to their website.
So
So
they
I don't
want
have
the
an
buyer to
application to
go.
give them.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a situation where the association, are you saying refuses to deal with a seller?
No, that the association doesn't provide you an application to give to the buyer. They want the buyer to go to their website, to the association website, and
Yeah.
apply directly through there.
Yeah, so I would say there you got the seller has to make the application and then convey the link or something, or share a username and password. That's awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's another example of the form being behind the function, in delayed to the function, not as up to date as the way we practice. All right, right of first refusal. Condominium association, check one, does or does not have the first right of refusal, and they're calling that a right pursuant to the terms of the declaration of condominium declaration, which reference includes all amendments thereto. The members of the condominium association do or don't have the right. If either of the condominium association the members have a right, then buyer and seller shall within blank days make the application of the effective date, sign and deliver any documents required as in a condition precedent to the exercise of the right, and shall use diligent effort to submit, promptly process the matter with the condominium association and members, including personal appearances. You're going to see the personal appearances thing over and over. That has been a bone of contention. They can't make me come in. It's a violation of fair housing rights and all kinds of other things. It's in the contract. Everybody contracted it away.
Let me ask you a quick question, Jim. You've been doing this a long time. I mean, what percentage of condos do you see have the first right of refusal or the members? I mean, it's to me,
1 out of 50.
yeah. So
Actually, I've seen more. So what I do now is I always pull all the condo docs that are
Yeah.
recorded and the amendments, and I read through them.
It's good.
That's why you're here and the rest of the world isn't. You're on it.
I'd like to put, actually, what I have been doing, guys, is I've been taking all the condo docs and the Sears reports, everything, putting it into Gemini AI, and then asking questions through Gemini. I have just like I've been doing that too. Not to say you have to rely on
saves a
AI,
lot
but
of time for sure.
I'm
does,
gonna
it
make
does,
a pause on the AI topic just for a second. And
yeah.
that is, I see Amy Jo's throwing up a heart. I love AI. I use AI 6 months ago, once every couple days. Now I use it 6 times a day. It's just amazing the time saving. But I will
Yeah.
tell you, I researched something this morning and it gave 2 completely erroneous answers. Not even close. It named businesses that aren't even in existence for the clients to rely on. And so you have to do a little bit of due diligence. You have to figure out when you're getting a bad answer. Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I've had agents texting me, oh my God, I used AI to review the contract and gave advice on whatever it was, days to closing or the effective date or some kind of time frame issue. You guys, don't solely rely on AI to do your basics, because if you do, you're going to give the wrong answer at some point. And these are seasoned agents who should know this stuff off the top of their
Well,
head.
this is, I was going to say, that's why I love Title Leap. Jim's closing software keeps track of all the drop dead dates, for
All the
free.
little milestones, yeah.
All right, let's keep
The
going.
condominium association or other member timely, if this is new to the new form, like I said, don't memorize this form. Don't even think about the changes. Just memorize this form because it's way better. It's a giant leap forward. If the condominium association or a member either has the right to exercise a right, this contract is terminated and the deposit shall be refunded to buyer unless the contract provides otherwise, thereby releasing buyer and seller from all further obligations under this contract. Lots of confusion with that one over the years. If within the time permitted, lots of confusion that this paragraph clarifies. If within the time frame permitted for exercise of the right, condominium association, the members of the condominium association, or both, either provide written confirmation to buyer that the right will not be exercised or fail to exercise, then the contract shall proceed as if hard. Lots of calls on that. There's Palm Beach. There's a couple of Palm Beach condos that have first rights of refusal. You see it a lot in older buildings. Is that what you find, Australia? Older or newer stuff? Usually it's in older buildings.
Older.
Yeah.
And especially back in the day when the foreclosure crisis,
Yeah.
oh my God, because they were so cheap that the members were trying to buy them up.
Yeah. I could tell you some horror stories from that era. Yeah. Brings back memories. Fees and assessments, prorations, and litigation. This is all new. Let me see my summary.
Dude, guys, if you have any questions as we go, put them into the chat. We will get to them by the end of the show.
All right. Condominium, makes it so much clearer. Condominium association assessments and rents. Seller represents that the current condominium association regular and periodic assessment installments are blank blank. And the current rent on the recreation area, if any, is blank. All regular periodic assessments levied by the condominium association and rent on recreational areas, if any, shall be made current by seller at closing. Everybody knows what levied means. Voted on the agenda, voted on and ratified. That's the only definition of levied there is. Levied doesn't mean proposed. Levied means voted on and ratified by the unit owners. Fines, seller shall at closing pay all fines imposed against the property by the condominium association as of closing date and remedy all open violations of rules and regulations, notice to seller in the condominium association official records. Another change to the form. Here's our magic contract language that I've given you guys. Whoever texts me, I send you a little cheat sheet of all stuff that we've used over the years. This now addresses some of the language that we've put in our magic contract language. I call it magic contract language. When representing buyers and you like to shift the burden and costs of permits and association violations to the seller, we have seen inserted in FAR section 20. This is an amalgamation of the stuff I've seen over the years. Seller shall close all permits that are open, inactive, revoked, pending, expired, or otherwise not properly closed, permit all unpermitted improvements, and resolve and close all municipal, county, homeowner and condominium association violations, if applicable, prior to closing. So now they've taken out the COA part of this for us. I'll still leave it in there, but now they've addressed it in the condo rider. And I'll say one other thing before we leave the topic. I saw the other day, again, on an expensive property, a lawyer wrote into a contract that the seller will satisfy all liens prior to closing. They wrote it in by hand. Why was the seller up in arms, livid at this insertion on the day before closing, right before the closing? I saw it on another contract that an attorney proposed also that wasn't at the closing table. Taxes are a lien. Property taxes are a lien. When you write stuff into the contract, you have to think of all the corner case possibility interpretations of your custom language. It's already in the contract. So what happened in those deals? The buyer started insisting that the seller was going to pay the property taxes for the year. Why? Because the seller represented they're going to satisfy all liens prior to closing. Property taxes are a lien. The argument isn't far-fetched. And what does it do? It creates a whole lot of other dialogue that's not necessary. Sorry for the digression into the rabbit hole, but don't put anything in the addendum to a contract until you've considered all the ramifications. If you have any questions, send me a text. Sorry. I love this stuff, and I want to see you guys practice as efficiently as possible. And some of this stuff you've just seen over the years, and it just happens, and you don't think twice about it. But when it becomes an issue, it becomes a huge issue.
Point of question, please.
Yep.
You talked about that just liens in there. Remember, the condo has, I don't know, violations from the county for the whole building.
Yeah.
And pool. And how does that become the seller's individual responsibility?
So you're saying, if I hear what you're saying, like, let's just imagine we're talking about SERS before the due date was amended. Now the building is in violation. How is it the unit owner's responsibility, or what is the unit owner's duty?
No, what I'm speaking of is a regular title search. You do a title search.
Yep.
And then you'll find building department, you'll find zoning department, you'll find all kinds of other, maybe even sewer connection department where things were messed up. And those are on record, public record.
For the building.
For the building itself, or the
Yep.
pool leaks, or it's unsafe.
Yeah, so as a buyer, you're going to want to know the financial implications, but you also make a good point, and that is, when does a violation become a lien? So a violation of an ordinance, or a violation of a safety regulation, or a violation, those live in the municipal records. Those come in what we call the muni search, or the tax liens. They're not a tax lien search, but a muni search. Once a judge makes an order that says this is now going to become a fine, and a daily fine accrues, then it becomes a lien. That's when you're going to see it in the title search. So there's a whole lot of stuff in the municipal lien search that's going to have to be resolved under the contract by the seller. But it's not until a judge says this becomes a lien. So that's under the contract, right? Those are obligations of the seller or the buyer. Open permits under the contract are a responsibility of the buyer. But once it becomes a lien and a judge orders on it, and once a judge orders on it, it becomes a lien. Now it's a title issue. It appears in title, and it's an absolute responsibility of the seller financially.
And I think I want to add on a little bit to it. His question is, if it's against the association, what we've seen that happen, especially in condos recently, if it's a cash buyer, as far as titles concerned, a sufficient funds affidavit is typically good enough to get rid of that or close over it. But if there's a lender involved, the lender might not lend.
Close with a sufficient funds affidavit?
Well, I think it just depends on how much the lender is really scrutinizing the lien against the association. We've definitely seen it when an association gets a lien for whatever it is. It could be a pool or whatever, and sometimes they're getting fined. We did one the other day in Ponte Verde where there was a daily fine accruing against the association, but we use a sufficient funds affidavit saying the association has, sufficient funds to pay it and close over it.
Tajay is a closer at New Path at our office, and so practically speaking, it sounds like, and thank you for the practical perspective, a cash buyer is going to be placated and satisfied with a sufficient funds affidavit, and some lenders may or may not be placated with a sufficient funds affidavit. Interesting.
Just carry on. You were saying be careful of what you write onto an addendum. That's an example of exactly why you be very careful what you add to an addendum.
Yeah.
Which, I mean,
I've seen
unit number.
I'll make one additional addendum digression. Less is more. If you ever write into an addendum all the sequence of events that led up to seller giving buyer a credit or something, if that file ever becomes problematic and it gets in the hands of an attorney, you've now written them the playbook for them to go, and create their own little story. You don't have to say it's a $500 credit for the seller's failure to do this or that or the other thing. You just say $500 credit. That's all you have to put in the addendum, $500 credit. It doesn't even have to be tied to anything. All right, special assessments. Did I beat the addendum thing enough? Beat it up enough? Special assessments, much better under the new form. If the condominium association has levied, there's that word again, any special or additional assessments as of the effective date, then buyer or seller shall pay all such assessments in full prior to the closing. If the condominium association levies any special or additional assessments after the effective date, then the buyer or the seller shall pay. Beautifully done. Is it wordy? Yes, but now at least you know exactly where you stand. But as a practitioner, you got to take the time to make the proper elections and make sure your clients understand. Notwithstanding the provisions or one or two above, if any special or additional assessments may be paid in installments, and the condominium association will allow buyer to assume the installments scheduled to be paid after closing, then seller shall, prior to closing, pay all installments which are payable on or before closing date. Check 1, buyer or seller, if left blank, buyer shall pay installments payable after the closing date. If seller is checked, this is a huge conversation that agents have texted me over the years. If seller is checked, or if the condominium association does not allow a buyer to assume installments scheduled to be paid after closing, seller shall pay special or additional assessments in full prior to the time of closing. Oh my God, how much confusion did they just clear up right there? Because
That's so many, new, right?
Yeah, that's all
that bold part. That happens a lot where it says the buyer will pay the installments, and then the associations. It happened last week, truthfully, and the association's like, no, it has to be paid in full. We don't allow the buyer to take over the installments.
And the one I love, the seller says they're going to make the installments after the closing. The agents text me and they say, yeah, but the seller's going to make the payments after the closing. Come on. You guys, we got to think of like common sense business leverage. What seller is going to continue stroking checks on assessments after the closing? But it's in black and white now, and we all have to adhere to it. And there's a whole bunch of changes in that paragraph. But long story short, I can go over all the changes. Long story short, it makes things a lot easier. Is it a little bit more wordy? Yeah. Is there a lot more detail? Yeah, but it's a lot shorter. It's a lot more clear. Litigation, seller represents the seller is not aware of any pending or anticipated litigation affecting the property, except for blank, sprinkler system retrofit. If pursuant to 718, the condominium association has voted to forego retrofitting its fire sprinkler system, then you have to give written notice to the seller, buyer, that that's the case. Non-developer disclosure. The form is a little it doesn't flow as well as it could, and I'll show you another example of where they were trying to jam stuff in. But anyways, The buyer hereby acknowledges that buyer has been provided a current copy of the Declaration of Condominium, Articles of Incorporation of the Association, bylaws and rules of the association, a copy of the most recent annual financial statement and annual budget, and frequently asked questions and answers frequently asked questions and answers document more than 7 days, excluding Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays before execution of this contract. So that's the first time that that 7-day thing appears. Now, the second time this agreement is voidable if you don't get that same list of documents within 7 days receipt of every single one of those documents. So if you deliver all the documents, but you leave out the FAQs, they still have 7 business days to cancel from the date they get the FAQs. And here's the kicker. You guys with me? This is hugely important because I see agents mess this up all the time. Any purported waiver of these voidability rights shall be of no effect.
Yep.
Now, you don't have to say whether you knew that or not. I forget about it all the time, but I get it. I get agents. I had an agent, 10-year, 15-year agent text me just the other day. They sent me a copy of the form they had their client sign that said we don't need it. You can't do it.
Yeah, you can't waive that
Got to
right.
be delivered.
So let me just go up, Jim. I just want to be sure here you have 7 days from the time that you receive
the last
one. Let me tell you guys, almost all agents don't get you the FAQs. They don't just
the governance form.
They don't. I mean, I'm just saying they don't. A lot of them forget that it's in there. Like I actually had a condo now. They never even provided the FAQs. My buyer right now has an out.
And this is 7 days prior to execution?
Well, if you have 2 choices, get it to them 7 days prior to execution, or if you've already signed the contract, deliver it and they have 7 days to cancel.
Yep. So you got to deliver.
Same as the old form structure, basically, but instead of 3, now it's 7 business days. So just realize 7 business days, and I gave you the list of federal holidays that are exempted out. And there's now 13 federal holidays.
So it's almost all condos now are going to be at least 10-day inspection periods. Almost minimum.
Yeah, and even if you have a super short inspection period, you have a 3-day inspection period. It's a condo, right? What are they going to look at? The panel and the stains on the wall, or whatever. Now it's going to be jumped out dramatically.
Jim, I may interrupt and just say, you find any association management that want to give out the FAQs? I've yet to find them voluntarily.
Yeah.
So here's how do you handle that? And I've been asked that for years. You tell your clients, you just be 110% transparent. Don't carry the stress yourself. Tell everybody what's going on and say, how would you like me to proceed? Here's the law. This is what they have to provide. How would you like to proceed? And you can give them an idea generally of what the FAQs are, because all the questions are the same, but the answers vary from unit to unit. And most of the time, the parties look at the FAQs and go, don't worry about it. That's been my experience. But do they have...
Yeah, it's like Beth has it, like, she says, what are we going to do if there is no FAQs? Do we get it writing from the association that they don't have it? And then just there we go.
Yeah.
That's what I would do. I would just communicate, like I said, 110% transparency. The association's not making it available. The association says they've never done it, whatever the association tells you. And then get the FAQs form and deliver it to your client, and say, do we really need them to answer this anyways? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all, the FAQs are not, from what I've seen, anything that's ever made anybody kill a deal. The FAQs are simply a stumbling block that attorneys use, quite frankly, to get their buyers out of deals late in the game.
Yep.
Now,
they can get them out. They can get them out.
Let's see. This agreement is voidable for, frequently asked questions. So they could, because we just read the paragraph, the sentence on voidability, you can't waive those rights. So then if you don't get the FAQs and they do waive their rights, is it legally sufficient? Technically, no. But if they do, it sounds like everybody's going to proceed to closing and not raise that issue anyways. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a practical issue and there's a legal issue. And sometimes you have to lean into the practical answer because meeting the legal threshold, the bar is so high, it's ridiculous. And if you get to that bar, you know, and you can't get to, I'm sorry, and if you can't get to that bar and you have an agreement between your parties, who's going to care anyways? Is anybody ever going to raise that as a last minute issue? Does that make sense? I'm kind of giving you guys some gray
I
light
know.
law. You got black and white law is supposed to be black and white. I just gave you something gray. It's still the law, but as a practitioner, sometimes we have to make practical decisions about how we're going to make this
All right.
transaction move forward. If you have any questions, text me, but that's a really good point. Buyer's request for documents. So now the checklist that I've been giving you guys for years is baked in the form.
It's in the
Surprise,
form
surprise.
now. I love it. It's in the form.
And it says seller shall at seller's expense. Well, it's kind of confusing. Seller, and then the form does get a little confusing from here on in, but seller shall at seller's expense provide a buyer with current copies of the condominium documents specified in paragraph 5. So that's the paragraph preceding, as well as the governance form described in section 7. Why couldn't they put it all in one big checklist? We talked about the governance form, and that's a standard form for all condos. It doesn't change from condo to condo. If this contract does not close, buyer shall immediately return all the documents to seller. Back in the day when we used to deliver paper stuff. Seller shall at seller's expense provide a buyer with a current copy of the following, check all requested by buyer. And then it says, this agreement may be terminated by a buyer by delivering written notice to the buyer's intention to cancel within 7 days, excluding Saturdays and Sundays and legal holidays, after the date buyer receives all the documents requested in this paragraph. So you got to get the stuff in paragraph 5, then you got to get whatever stuff the buyer wants to see here. And then when you deliver the last of it, and they even left you some blanks so you can come up with who knows what. I don't know why the blanks are there, but it's there. I'm sure Australia is going to give us an idea of what she writes in there shortly. And then they have another 7-day period from the receipt of these last documents. So in theory, you could be working a long time if you're poorly prepared, if you're a poorly prepared seller's agent and the buyer keeps pounding you with more stuff they want to see, or you could be a properly prepared seller's agent and line this stuff up ahead of time, and when the buyer comes in, you're not going to be giving them an additional 7 days all the time. Common elements parking, same as it was before. All right, here's maybe I'm missing something. You guys can point this out because I haven't consulted any other attorneys or anybody on this, just you guys. The rights and obligations arising under paragraph 11 and 12 of this contract to maintain, repair, replace, or treat are limited to seller's individual condominium units, and unless seller is otherwise responsible, do not extend to common elements, limited common elements, or any other part of the common condominium property. Paragraphs 11 and 12. This is the form I was given, but it don't have no 11 and 12 on it.
What? Wow.
Paragraphs 11 and 12.
Mhm.
Ends at 10 as far as I can see. So, what am I trying to tell you guys? Nobody is perfect. That's why they call it the practice of law. They don't call it the perfection of law. They call it the practice of law. This is the practice of real estate. It's not the perfection of real estate. We all have to deal with imperfect environments.
It might be 11 and 12 of the as-is contract.
Okay, that could be. Okay. That's why we do this as a group. Thank you, Australia. I knew, see, I told you, I said you were going to have an opinion on something. So
Yesterday, the FAR webinar said they do have a period where they're going to correct typos and errors. That's might be one of them.
let's go back and look at should we look at the demo or login?
Yeah, I'm looking at form simplicity too.
Start new file.
Yeah, the new one's already uploaded in form simplicity. I'm just checking here now.
I talked to an agent. They said they're in there.
Yeah, no, 11 and 12 is not in the form simplicity as well.
But I think Australia might be onto something. 11. Oh, there you go. Bing, bing, bing. That's why I always say iron sharpens iron. And never be humble, never be Never think you know everything, because just as soon as you think, people say to you, oh, I have the best doctor, I have the best lawyer, I have the best person on that topic. Nobody's ever the best. Everybody's always learning from each other. So there you go. The rights and obligations arising under 11 and 12. So this is the as-is maintenance requirement, and this is the inspection period of this contract. Okay, I should have picked up on that, capital C. The rights and obligations arising under paragraphs 11 and 12 of this contract to maintain, repair, and replace, treat, or limited to sellers individual condominium units. Ah, now that makes total sense. Perfect. So they're just saying that the unit owner is not under a duty to inspect, to maintain or improve in the condition it was in. The as-is maintenance requirement says the seller has to deliver the property in the condition it was in on the day of closing.
Yep. On the
And
day of
so
closing.
this is just saying that it doesn't extend to the common elements of the
Okay.
property.
All right, no big deal.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Condominium rider, a couple minor changes here, but nothing dramatic. You're gonna select if it's done and required, or is not required, or is required to have completed, but is not done yet. So now,
So the milestone inspection period, that wasn't extended. It was the SIRS study that was extended, correct?
I assumed it was both, but
Okay.
let me go back and double check.
Just look. Because I know the SIRS you said it now has been extended until the end of this year.
SIRS was definitely extended, but I only said SIRS over and over. I didn't say milestone inspections. The deadline for SIRS, yeah, it says SIRS. It doesn't say milestones.
Okay, so just so everybody's clear now, these are condos, okay, that are 3 stories or higher, 25 years or older.
3 habitable stories. So if you have a parking garage and 2 habitable stories, it doesn't comply with SIRS. It doesn't have to conform with milestone or SIRS. So if you have a parking on the first floor, condos on the second and third, doesn't have to comply with SIRS. But that's a really interesting point, and it does say SIRS, and we'll clarify that next session for sure. But I'm agreeing with you that the milestones is still due, but the SIRS is not due until December 31st, 2025. So to clarify, I'm going to agree for this show that its milestones were due 2024 December, and the SIRS, Structural Integrity Reserve Study, is certainly due December 31st, 2025. Turnover inspection report. This is for newer buildings.
Yeah.
Turnover, same as it was before. Structural Integrity Reserve Study. This is what we were just talking about. The association is required to do it and has it done. The association is not required to do it and is required to have it completed, the reserve study, but has not completed it yet. So now we are going to be, in half of our deals, it sounds like we're going to be making this last election that it's required and it hasn't been done yet. Because the buildings just haven't had it done. Half the building, practically speaking, half the buildings aren't completed. If the buyer hereby acknowledges the buyer has been provided a current copy, what are we at? 1058. Check only one if it applies below. The association has completed a milestone inspection or a turnover inspection report or a structural integrity reserve study. The buyer hereby acknowledges that the buyer has been provided a current copy of the inspector prepared summary of the milestone inspection as described in section Florida statute 553899, or a turnover inspection, or here the agreement is voidable by buyer by delivering written notice to the buyer's intention to cancel within 7 days. So you got that 7-day period again from when they get the inspections and the SIRS and the turnover reports. So they've extended those inspection periods to those issues.
Well, I mean, there's no more fighting anymore now, though, like for shorter inspection periods on condos. I mean, it's going to be a minimum 10 days. I mean, just,
Yeah, I mean, if you can get if you can get a shorter period and limit the issues, you know, to just the financial stuff, if they want to go in and do their physical inspections and they can get them done in 2 or 3 days, sure. But yeah, you're gonna have holdover issues on all the financials and the inspections. You know, and the other thing I would say, if you got people that are on the fence, the nice thing about all these new laws is I'm selling a couple condos right now, and I can say with complete confidence to the buyers, you know, or the agents can say to the complete confidence to the buyers, here's what you're going to expect for expenses over the next 30 years. You can't do that in a single family home. It's completely predictable what they're going to be looking at for expenses.
Mm-hmm.
Condominium rider continued. So this goes into the legal holidays and the timeframes. Condominiums created within a portion of a building with multiple parcel buildings. So this is that whole thing about nested communities. And then the disclosure summary about nested communities. Here's what I'm going to do for the next session. We're going to talk about vertical subdivisions and the distinction between vertical subdivisions and the new statute, and get into a little bit more minutia. And I'm going to give you a checklist, a revised checklist for the condominium rider.
Got it.
All right. So today I want to go over the form changes, and next week next session we'll go over how you manage the changes from a checklist perspective, for lack of a better term, and how you approach the form. But time just didn't permit until they let the form free for me to prepare that. I used to be on the forms writing committee, but they asked me to not participate because I wanted to do too many things. I wanted to make too many changes. Like I said, why do we do these things this way? You know, when you look at the contract and you talk about certain things, like why do we even do this anymore, where you have this section of the contract where you talk about choosing title, Broward, or you have, you know, seller pick, buyer pick, and then you have Miami-Dade. Like, why do we even have Miami-Dade anymore? It just creates confusion. And they said, well, you don't have to come to the next contracts writing committee meeting.
I got you off the committee, Jim.
Yeah, got me off the committee.
Okay, great. This has been awesome, Jim. We did have some questions that we had in the chat, and I know we're just getting over, guys, but we'll try to get them. Can someone purchase a property via financing in a condominium that has not passed the 40-year recertification, or I guess if they haven't done the structural integrity or reserve study, can they still get financing?
It's going to be up to the lender, but most lenders are getting savvy to this stuff. Tajay may have some other perspectives just from working on this stuff, but I can't imagine if the property doesn't have its inspections done, then it has a hard time getting insurance. And if it has a hard time getting insurance, it tends to not be lendable.
Yep.
It's a little house of cards, but they're all
Well,
interconnected.
there's some portfolio lenders too that, like, can overlook a lot of stuff too. I know I've worked with some as well, so that could be some options.
I mean, the key is exactly what you said. Get to know a good lender.
Yep. Beth asked, do you have a redlined version of the new addendum, the condo rider? Do you have a red line that you can share?
I saw one yesterday, but I don't have it. So you want to go back and look at the old form and see what's been changed? I will do my best for the next session to put that into an outline.
So yeah, people can know what's changed and what hasn't.
Yep. I mean, really, I said it a couple times during the show, and I'll say it again, you know, for lack of redundancy, or forgive me for redundancy. Just get to know the new form. It's easier, it's better. If you try to think of changing between the old form and the new form, old way and new way, just get to know the new way as soon as possible. You're gonna have an easier time practicing. And I'll give you a cheat sheet to the new form next session.
No, the next sessions we're going to get into more detail, but is there a deadline which the associations need to have their websites updated to include the required documents? Do they give any kind of deadline on that?
July 1.
Really?
I believe so. I'll double check it. Serves mandate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm dealing with a condo right now that I have a listing. It's just like pulling teeth trying to get these documents from the association. And there's what they made my seller order an estoppel to get the payoff because of a special assessment. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just crazy. on that kind of stuff.
The docs are on form simplicity. Everything else that was before is gone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I checked Form Simplicity too. They're all on there now.
I think they have to have increased, let's see, where was it? 3 the units, budgets.
You know, Linda brings up a valid question here. You know, there's a bunch of stuff here, you know, on the new condo rider, you know, that both the buyer and seller have to sign off on the condo rider, and you know, it's kind of commingled there on this one document. You know, it could definitely delay a lot of stuff. You know,
Oh, okay. So associations managing condominium 20 or more units shall post digital copies of the documents. Takes effect January 1st, 2026, applies to 92%. Yeah, you're right. That one particular provision isn't mandatory until January 1st, 2026 on the website, maintaining copies of all the documents.
it's still going to be a mess until January of next year.
January 1, yeah.
Yeah, sure would be nice when that's done.
You guys, as painful as this is, I'm very surprised at the speed with which this stuff's getting addressed. You know, it seems like forever, but if you look back, it's only been a year, and we've revised the forms and we're getting different ways of practicing. And I'll keep you guys up to speed on all this stuff before it happens. All right, it's 11:06. Anybody has any questions? I'm not offended if anybody wants to drop off, and anybody has any questions they want to linger, I'm happy to answer them.
I mean, what percent of deals now do you think are going to be able to conform fully to the condo rider, especially with the FAQs and the back and forth of the, you know, of these sign-offs on the condo rider? It's crazy.
Well, I think this is for sure. I'll be getting less texting confusion over the special like agents will be texting me less over confusion on the special assessment section and first rights of refusal and things like that, which is what I get a lot of questions over. Not the first right so much, but mainly the special assessments issue. For years, this is going to clarify that dramatically. And we all have to remember, levied doesn't mean it was proposed, doesn't even mean it appears in the agenda. Levied means it was proposed, voted on, and the vote passed, right?
Yeah.
And there's two different agendas. This is an important one. Where is it?
No, I mean the meeting minutes now too. I mean, going back too, because like I said, what's levied now and what's been discussed in the last two, you know, board meetings.
You guys, look at this.
I mean,
Minutes of the condominium association board meetings for the 12 months prior. Agendas for the condominium association board meetings for the 12 months prior. Minutes for the association member meetings for the 12 months prior.
wow.
Agenda for the condominium. There's 4 documents there. Voluminous, lengthy documents.
Jesus.
I mean, I always thought, I'm going to be completely honest, I always thought it was one set of agendas and meeting minutes, but it's actually 2 separate for the board and for the members. I mean,
sorry.
an attorney that you know that really understands this stuff, and a couple of agents that don't is going to make a mess.
I mean, pretty much every condo deal. I honestly couldn't see less than 2% or 5% of condos complying with all this. Yeah. I just can't imagine.
I would have to agree.
I mean, this is like a fluid thing now. Like, you know.
Sounds to me like we need to start charging a higher commission to have to deal with condos.
Well, yeah, I mean, we should have our commission plus a retainer agreement just to get
at the bottom of the condominium rider. There should be an additional commission, you know, damage pay.
Every agent should now have like a $2,500 retainer for every condo.
And who should pay it? And who should pay it? The seller should pay it, right?
That's what I mean. It should be on the listing agreement now.
Yeah.
If you call it a fee, it's not contingent on a commission closing. It
Yeah.
is a fee, so you could be paid by the hour to collect these documents, to manage, to whatever. Forget
Yeah.
the word compensation. No, no commission. Compensation. Call it a
Australia,
fee.
you got some
Charge a
competition
fee.
there.
Yeah.
But
Fee agreement.
there's to go a step further from FARs yesterday, two things. They also talk about in this document, there's mention of if there's a master association or there's more than one association related to this condo. It's a POA, it's an HOA, it's part of a something. There's a whole different ballgame when it comes to that.
You
Going
guys,
back
could
to
you imagine doing this? I know, I don't want to cut you off, Stephen, but I know of a property that has a master association and a condo and a sub-condo. So you're doing this 3 times.
and I've been
One
in one that
sale.
charged 3 different estoppel fees, almost $1,000.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Tajay, what's the biggest estoppel fee we've seen recently? I think he's going to say $650. Maybe he's gone. He's probably closing a file. I think we saw $650. Could you imagine having $2,000 in estoppel fees? It's out of
Yeah.
control. You
One
guys,
other,
and I mean this sincerely when I say this. I feel for you guys. Like, I feel for you guys because when I think about all the little rules in the contract and how much time I spend on this, and your guys' role is to go out and find buyers and sellers and get them to the closing table, not be experts in the contract. I feel for you guys. There's so many nuances in this contract. I mean, we touched upon one. This is overtime. If anybody wants to sign off, I'm not going to be I'm not going to be offended, but we talked about one, which is the provision in the contract Australia pointed out, which is the property related no. The as is maintenance requirement in the contract.
11,
Don't
12.
you don't even know how many agents don't know how this operates. And so, and then they, like Ryan said, you just do this thing fluidly and everybody operates the same way over the years, but there's so many possibilities for problems in the contract. So, read the
Yes.
contract a couple times and then read it once a month. Somebody told me that a long time ago. I've stuck to it.
Wow.
And then
Does anyone listening to Craig Studnicki's ISG reports?
tell us
Was
about it. We're in
one
overtime
of the,
to hear
one
it.
of the latest ones. Okay, he talks about the new condos and the old condos, and what's going to happen. What's already happening is anything that's about 20 years or older is tied up in all of this mess, and that market is just going to keep going. More and more inventory, more and more issues, less and less sales. Buyers are buying new buildings. Bottom line.
What is the name of this discussion?
Craig, Craig, Studnicki, Studniky. He's the CEO of ISG, and every quarter he comes out with a quarterly report. I keep them on my email I could forward, and they are extremely good. They're also on the Miami Association of Realtors websites, I believe.
And the ISG are the reports solely to speak on the issues of real estate. ISG is
He is in particular speaking about lately all of the condominium changes, all of what's happening. He gives a whole synopsis of the statistics of
the
what's
dynamic.
going on in the market. It's an
Yeah.
amazing webinar to watch.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is too, is like, we discussed earlier in the webinar of like the price of new construction. It's just, I mean, prices everybody out, here in West Palm. I don't know, Stephen, maybe you can speak more to Miami, but like anything new that's being built here is like a minimum, like 1,000 a foot or more.
What's the building going up next to One City?
That's Mr. C.
Mr. C. Mr. C, a 1-bedroom is 1.4 million.
Yeah.
It's north of $1 million. And if you get any amenities, it's 1.4 million.
So you're over $1,000 a square foot. I mean, you know what I mean? Well over, I mean, it's just like, it's not affordable for, your everyday person living here.
That's why the billionaires are here from all over the world. That's who is being catered to because that's who the developers can make profit on.
Well, and it's a
They
club
can't make
too.
profit on a $300,000 brand new condo. Impossible without a bunch of tax credits and a bunch of affordability. Those Live Work Act things are not really coming off.
And if you look at who's building the workforce housing in Northwood, it's actually a project that they were required to build as a function of other constructions. So
Correct.
yeah, it's like, yeah,
And is that for
It is-
sale, Jim, or is that for rent?
it's for rent.
Yeah, I know that project. Yeah, that's the new one that's going. But yeah, there's
There's
still
supposed to
rental
be
projects.
some units, like there has to be a mix of rent and sale, but from what I can tell in there, it's just for rent. But it's become, the system is working in a weird way. It is working. It just takes a long time, but it is working and we are getting more affordable stuff finally hitting the ground. But the stuff that we read about, you know, like the Steve Ross stuff, 600 million in financing, that was just the loan, 600 million.
I do want to say this: the last two condos I put under contract personally for clients of mine, one is a couple from Michigan, second home. The other one's a single lady. They both bought their condos considerably less than they traded for. One was 2 years ago, and one was 3 years ago. One traded for like 450. They ended up getting it for 370. The other one had traded for like 320, and she got it for like 265.
So they were listed, they're selling for a lot less than the list.
Yeah, than they were just the last 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. So, I mean, luckily, they had put a lot of money down, and I used the title advance, Jim, to make sure there was enough equity there to where
Well, Tajay is, thanks. And Tajay
Yeah.
is, he comes in and we talk about it and he's closing a lot of stuff now, quite a few units now that sold for a lot more a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
People are taking a haircut. There's a lot of, there's a lot of people you would think they would never take a haircut and they're taking a haircut because, for numerous reasons. It depends how they earn their money. It depends what other dynamics are in their life, but you would think the conversation about price reductions would be a lot steeper uphill than it seems to
Morning,
be.
everyone. It's Craig Studnick.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that video, Stephen. I'm gonna watch that. That's really good.
It's the Nikki. Yep. All right, you guys, it's 11:15.
Wow,
Okay.
I mean, thank you, Jim, for shepherding through this. As us agents, we start to panic when there's massive changes to the contract. But I mean, I helped you cleared this one. I think our next show will go more in depth to it and more things that we can do. But Jim, thank you so much for doing this one.
Yeah, absolutely, you guys. Get out there and sell and have a great day. And I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, guys.